Talfalava and welcome to this edition of Pacific Geopolitics. Tonight I have the pleasure of interviewing Judge Clarence Nelson. He was part of a group of judges that made a historic ruling on the harmful effects of climate change on children's rights in Geneva. The Child's Rights Committee has found that a state party can be held responsible for the negative impacts of its carbon emissions on the rights of children both within and outside its territory. Now, the reason why Samoa is involved in this is because Vui was part of the committee that made that decision and that ruling. So it's a really exciting aspect for Samoa under international law. So Judge Vui is, as you know, Justice of the Supreme Court of Samoa. He's a judge of the Lands and Titles Courts, and he was the national coordinator of Samoa for the Pacific Judicial Development Program. His educational background includes St. Joseph's College in Samoa. He received his Bachelor of Laws from University of Canterbury in Christchurch. He was a youth justice. Participated in the youth justice training in Suva, Fiji. He's a certified national and regional trainer for the Pacific Judicial Development Program and has been very active in Pacific Island Lawyers Human Rights Network and is a mentor for Samoa Victim Support Group. He has been an advocate for children's rights and protection of young victims of sexual violence. He served 5 years as member of the South Pacific Council for Youth and Children's Courts and was involved in the creation and setup of Oloamanu Juvenile Facility, a minimum security facility specifically designed for the housing of juvenile offenders. So thank you so much, Vui, for joining me this evening, and congratulations on your reappointment to the CRC. And also to the recent ruling. This is it's a great thing for Samoa, but also a great thing for children, and indeed the international law of governing the issues related to climate change.
But we'll be conducting our interview in English. Thank you so much for taking the time to speak with me about this amazing accomplishment and ruling by the Committee on the Convention on the Rights of the Child, which is historical in nature. And for me, I'm really, really excited that you're a part of it. So welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, Cheryl. I am very pleased to be here. I'm very pleased to be speaking with you.
Thank you. So tell me, so a lot of people who watch the show may not necessarily know what CRC stands for and its work. Can you just walk us through what CRC is?
Okay, well, the Convention on the Rights of a Child is an international convention that has been signed by every country in the world except where you're living at the moment, in the United States of America. They are the only country in the world that has not signed or ratified the Convention on the Rights of the Child, but all the other 196 odd countries in the world have signed this convention. And what this convention does is the convention contains a number of rights of children. And when countries sign up or ratify the convention, it means they agree that the children of their country are going to enjoy the rights that are in this convention. And it means that they are going to protect the rights that are in the convention. And it means that they are going to pay particular attention to the needs of children in their country. So, you know, when you consider that in many countries, children make up a large part of the population of a country, it's a very important convention. And when countries sign up to this convention and ratify the convention, they are taking on board quite a huge obligation. And as I said, many of the countries, or all the countries in the world, have done this, except for one, except the United States. And you know, we're working on trying to persuade the United States to sign, because it is one of the leading nations of the planet, no doubt about it. And attached to the convention, and you know, I think it would take too long to go through the whole convention bit by bit, but the main parts for our purposes is, one of the rights in the convention is the right to health, which is in Article 24 of the convention. And what it says is that countries agree that they recognize that a child has the right to, and I'll quote from the actual document, to the highest attainable standard of health. So that's, we call that the right to health. And it's a right that is very actively used and promoted in many areas. I mean, vaccinations is a current topic on this particular right. The right to health, to children have a right to be vaccinated against COVID-19 and things like that. So it's a very practical and a very important right that's given by the convention. And that right has also been extended to include the right to a healthy environment. In other words, the right to health of a child includes him or her being able to live in a sustainable and a good pollution-free environment. And this right to health is what underpins the whole approach of the committee to the issue of climate change. And it's what's used to argue that because of this right to health, that therefore children have a right to a healthy environment. And there is an important part of the right to health that is often overlooked by people, but it's sub-article 4, which says that countries undertake to promote and encourage international cooperation with a view to achieving the realization of the right to health. And it specifically refers to, in particular, the needs of developing countries. Now, that part is often overlooked when people talk about the right to health, but along with the right to health comes this obligation to promote and encourage international measures that will support the right of health and that will make sure that the right to health is enjoyed by every child, in particular, those in developing countries. Now, we're both from the Pacific. We know how important that particular part is and how relevant that particular part is to all countries of our region. So that in a nutshell is the convention. And our role as the Committee on the Rights of the Child is, we are the policemen of the convention. We make sure that countries comply with what they've signed up to do. And we do that by a process where countries come to us every few years and they report. They file a report saying, we've done this and we've done that in relation to education, in relation to health, in relation to non-discrimination, birth registration. It's a very large process. And they file a report with our committee. What the committee does is we review the report. Then we have a dialogue with the country. The country actually physically comes to Geneva where the committee sits. And we have a dialogue and we examine them and talk to them about what's in the report. And when we've finished that process, we then issue to the country recommendations. We call them concluding observations. It's a fancy word for recommendations. And it's what we say to the country, well, yes, we know you've done this and that, but you should think about doing this as well. And how about this? Have you done this? Have you thought? And those are the recommendations we give them. And that's how the committee monitors and tries to make sure that countries are abiding by their convention obligations. So, as I say, we're like the policemen of the Convention on the Rights of the Child.
I think that's a nice way of simplifying the enormous role that you play at the CRC, or the Committee on the Rights of the Child. Now, I'm just going to take a step back. The role that you have right now is a member of the committee. And can you tell us how many committee members there are?
There are 18 committee members. I'm one of the 18, and we come from all over the world. We have members from Africa. We have members from Europe. We have a member from Iceland. We have members from Latin America. We have a member from the Caribbean. And we have members from Asia Pacific, and I'm the Pacific member, as well as members from Asia. And our current chair is, in fact, a Japanese lady from Japan. So it's a very diverse group of people all over the world. And they all bring their own perspective to the committee. And I'm humbled and privileged to sit together with these people, because these are leading experts in children's rights, and they are very knowledgeable people and very dedicated and very hardworking, committed people to upholding children's rights. So it is certainly a privilege to be working with them.
Well, and I this is 2 years delayed, but congratulations on your re-election back in 2019. Now, I think for everyone who is watching, this is actually quite historical for Samoa to have a Samoan judge be a part of this committee. It's a coveted position. It takes a lot of experience and credibility for a judge to even be considered and nominated. And in order for judges to be elected to the committee, the member countries of the UN have to vote. And unsurprisingly, as Vui is well regarded in Samoa and the Pacific, and now has quite an international reputation, Vui, I know that you received the second highest number of votes in the 2019 re-election, which I've been in many negotiations and covered many of these voting procedures. That is an absolutely amazing thing to accomplish, because it takes really, it takes you as a person to actually get the trust of these country representatives. And then Samoa, and to their credit, Ministry of Foreign Affairs and the UN mission, did a tremendous amount of work to lobby and to get the votes that you received. So I just wanted to kind of let everyone know that this is quite a huge accomplishment for Samoa, because we're a small member and small player in the UN, yet we're now 2 years in a row, right, Vui? I'm sorry, 2 terms in a row.
Terms in a row, yeah.
You have been reelected. So I felt I needed to share that. So how has it been for you as a Pacific Islander, as a Samoan judge, to be sitting in that position?
Well, I bring a Pacific perspective that would otherwise not be there. And these people are from all over the world, but that doesn't mean that they are familiar with every part of this planet. This is a very big world with a very diverse ethnic makeup and population. And if I were in there would be no sort of Pacific perspective to the way we do things. And that's the value that each of us brings to the table. We bring our own personal lifetime experiences, as well as our commitment to children's rights. We bring what we are and who we are to the table. So I think that is important. And I'll tell you this, Shirab, I may be the first, but I'm not going to be the last.
I sure hope so. I hope that there's more to come, and that this is merely the beginning. So I agree with you. Hopefully you won't be the last. Now, the reason why we are having this conversation is because I saw on social media that you were heading to Europe. And then shortly thereafter, I received the press release by the United Nations Human Rights Office of the High Commissioner, or OCHA, as we refer to it. And apparently, for our audience tonight, the committee that Bui sits on made a historic ruling on the harmful effects of climate change on children's rights, and found that a state party can be held responsible for the negative impact of its carbon emissions on the rights of children, both within and outside its territory. Now, the reason why I've asked Bui today is so that he can share with us the process and the significance of this particular ruling, especially for the people of the Pacific. So, Bui, do you mind, first of all, just sharing with us how this played out when you were in Geneva?
All right. Well, firstly, let me just explain how this ruling comes about. The convention had attached to the convention three what we call optional protocols. These are separate documents. One document is about sale, prostitution, and pornography and how it affects children. One document is about the children in armed conflict and how wars and things like that affect children's rights. And the third document, the newest document, is a complaint mechanism, which is called the Optional Protocol on a Communications Procedure. And what it is that's a fancy word for a complaint mechanism where individual children, any child, anywhere in the world, can bring a complaint direct to the committee. He doesn't have to go through a government or an NGO or anyone else. He can bring the complaint direct to the committee. And we have literally thousands of complaints being brought by children against their governments or against other governments in relation to how their rights as children have been violated. Now, that was the mechanism that 16 children around the world used to bring the climate change complaint to the committee. And what they did is they brought the complaint against 5 countries. Now, in order to bring a complaint against a country, the country has to have signed this protocol, this optional protocol. Now, these 5 countries have. Not every country has signed the protocols. The convention, yes, everybody signed the convention, but the protocols, not everybody has signed the protocols. Although I am very happy to report that Samoa has signed all 3 protocols, and we're one of the few Pacific nations that has done this and has signed all 3 of the protocols, which is an example that should be followed by every Pacific country, every country in the world. But this was the document under which the children brought their complaint to the committee. Now they had attorneys or lawyers acting for them, yes, but the complaint was actually brought by 16 children from around the globe, including Greta Thunberg, who we all know is one of the primary activists in this area. And their complaint was brought on the basis, as you say, they said these 5 countries are well-known carbon emission countries. And these carbon emissions are causing damage to not only children in their country, in the actual countries, but also to children in other countries. So they brought their argument to the committee saying, these 5 countries have breached our guarantee to a right to health and a healthy environment. And we want the committee to make rulings in respect of our complaint against these 5 countries. Now, that's a simplification of a very complex case, but it came to the committee. It's been before us for over a year. It's been a difficult and very, how do you say it, very complex process to try to unravel, because what the children are in effect saying is, I am a child who lives in country A. Country A, because of the carbon emissions that it is putting out, is not only harming me, but it's harming children in country B, country C, country D. So it's asking the committee to tell my government not to harm the children in another country, not only me, but the children in another country. Now you can appreciate how complex that issue can be, because the government in country A is saying, well, we have no business in other countries and what happens in other countries. We're only concerned with the children of our country. We're not obliged to also pay regard to what happens to the children in other countries. And they also say, anyway, we're not the only polluters. Countries the world over are doing it. Why are you picking on us? What about all these other countries? And everybody is doing much more than we are. We're only a little part of it, you know. And that basically, in very basic terms, was the one of the main defenses that they were running. So the case was very complicated. And I mean, we took a long time in evaluating the case of the children. And we did things that we have not done before in respect of this complaint, because we recognize the value of this to children. Because every time we talk to children in our committee, the 3 topics that come up, climate change is guaranteed one of them. So we know it's a concern to all children of the world, and we wanted to give it the attention it needs because of that importance to children.
That's so how, like, in terms of, can you actually simplify exactly what the ruling means? So you're saying that it did touch on the impact on health of children.
Yeah.
To what degree?
Well, just to fill you in on the process, we actually heard, we had a closed session with the children themselves, where there was no lawyers, no government representatives, nobody else, committee and the children. And it was really important to hear individually from them their concerns. And 2 of these children, one was from the Marshall Islands.
Oh, wow.
And yes, one is from the Marshall Islands. He was one of the 16 children. And there was one, I think there was another one from the Pacific region. I just can't recall exactly where at the moment. It might have been FSM, I'm not sure, but there were Pacific children in this as well. And it was really important that the committee heard direct from them what kind of harm and damage has been caused to their ecosystems, their country, their ability to enjoy education and health and welfare, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And after hearing from them, we had what we call oral hearings. Well, actually, it was like a court case.
Mm.
Had all the lawyers. We did it at one country at a time and gave everybody a chance to have their say. So when we had done all that, we then took time to make our findings and our decision. And the decision, I think you will find it's publicly announced now. It's all in many areas, in many forums, and in many on the internet. And there is also a version that we specifically did for children of the decision. I'm sure you've read it amongst the documents you've looked at. And we did that specifically because it's important to us that the children understand the ruling, because the ruling deals with a lot of complex aspects of extraterritorial jurisdiction and reasonable foreseeability of harm and all this sort of stuff. You know, the stuff that us judges like to throw around like, you know, like everybody understands them, but not everybody understands them. So we wanted to put it in clear and simple terms what our ruling was. So I would recommend that anybody who wants to read and understand the decision, read not only the decision, but also there's a version attached to it that is specifically for the children. Now, coming down to the actual decision, in essence, the historic and groundbreaking part of the decision is the committee said to the children, yes, government A can be held responsible for the harm that it has caused to children in country B and country C and country D, provided you can prove that the harm was reasonably foreseeable. And, you know, we're now living in an age where the science tells us that carbon emissions and the raising of the global temperature is producing all these phenomena. So scientifically, there is that evidence, a mountain of evidence to that effect. So we said, provided the harm to the children in country B, C, and D was foreseeable, and provided it can be proved, then yes, you have a case against government A for the harm it causes not only in country A, but in other countries. But the problem is, you need to first go to country A and take action there. You need to do what we call exhaust the local remedies in country A. And if that doesn't work out and you don't have a satisfactory result, then you can bring a claim to the committee. But you can't just, because what they did is they didn't do that. They came direct to the committee. There were some children who took litigation in some countries, but in respect of this complaint, it was brought at the outset direct to the committee on the basis that they wanted the committee to intervene and to assist them because they argued that going through the national processes was complex and in some cases was futile. What we said to them is, you have a complaint, but first, because of what this protocol says, I mean, we're limited to what the protocol says. And the protocol says, before you can come to the committee, you have to prove you've tried everything else at a local level. You've exhausted your domestic remedies. And that's where the complaint was ruled inadmissible, is because they hadn't done that. But the door is now open. And this is the historical part. Mm. This door that was not open before. But this is now a door in international law has now been opened by the committee. And we have said, you can do this. You can bring complaints like this to this body. And we will then examine the substance of your complaint. Now that is the historical part about it. And that, I think, is the exciting part about the ruling, notwithstanding the result. And I know children are disappointed with the result. There's no doubt about it. We've seen the Twitter comments and the statements that made in the media saying that we've abandoned them and that we don't care about the children, which is not correct. It is not. We did, as I said, we are confined to what is in the protocol. And the protocol says that you've got to do this before you come to the committee. But I think the most encouraging part about it is we have opened an international door, and that hasn't been done before. So that, to me, is the triumph.
Mm. Oh, it's really exciting to see this type of ruling on climate under a convention and with the process that the committee went through. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but this has not been, as you said, this is the first of its type. It hasn't actually been done in any other body. There's been discussions, and there's currently a working group under the ILC, the International Law Commission, to look at the impact of sea level rise on small island states. They're just at the beginning stages of addressing climate change under the ILC, and yet the CRC has now done this. So I think it's a really significant step, and I think I find it in a very nerdy way very exciting that you were part of the committee, because this will be referenced in international law and climate law in years to come. So I did see some of the Twitter commentary, but international law has its nuances, so I can totally understand, and I'm grateful for the way that you've explained it. So what is the way forward now for children who want to keep pursuing this particular area?
Well, I think, firstly, children should not stop doing what they're doing. COPS is coming up. The COPS meeting is coming up. There's an opportunity there for them to also make their voices heard and make their views known. And those sort of things, I am sure they will continue to do. In relation to this particular issue, they should go back and pursue domestic remedies, pursue actions in the national courts. As I said, some of them have done that. There have been cases in Germany and Brazil, and there are other cases pending before the national courts. Unfortunately, it will take time, and there's no going away from that. And you know, that's one of the criticisms that's being made, that you know all these things are going to take time. By that time, it will be too late. Well, it's never too late. It's never too late. Now, for them, I think what the committee has pointed the way forward, that this is what they should do. And if then they've done that and there is an unsatisfactory resolution, then the door is now open for them to bring their claim back to the committee. But I think, Sherelle, you know, the state of public opinion and world views now in this area, I'm an optimist. I see the glass as half full, and I think, and I hope that for many reasons that governments will act and live up to the pledges that they've already made in Paris and in other forums and other international obligations that they've publicly stated that we are going to undertake. And hopefully they do that, and it will resolve itself. But having said that, I'm also a realist and a pragmatist, that it does take time, and not everybody is going to come to this party, because some of them have taken very firm positions against it. So I hope the children continue to do what they're doing, and I'm sure they will. I don't see them as giving up, and I hope they don't.
Well, I think that's a nice way of summarizing, the reality of moving forward. So, final question, just a human interest question. So, was Greta in the room?
She was when we did the hearings. Because I'm on the other side of the world, and because these hearings were online, I was unable to attend every hearing.
Okay.
With the children from the different countries. So I can't definitively 100% say that I heard her speak, because I didn't personally, but I'm very certain that she was part of when the committee heard from the children directly. That I'm sure that included Greta as well.
She's definitely made a huge difference in terms of like considering the issues about children by children. She certainly made a huge difference in that respect. And I remember you also advocated for two representatives from Samoa to attend one of the CRC. Was it a working group or a regional meeting?
Yes. It was the DGD on the environment. We had a day of general discussion, or a special meeting on the environment a few years ago, and I was able to get some funding for a girl from Samoa to attend, with the help of UNICEF and some other bodies to attend. And I believe that there are also going to be two young children from Samoa attending COPs. I don't know if they're going to be an online attending, or whether they're physically going to be attending. And that's great, because Samoa is no different to the rest of the Pacific. We are all seeing the effects of climate change, and how the cyclones. When I grew up, cyclones were rare, and they weren't that bad. Now they're vicious, and they're frequent. It happens in a generation, and these changes are here. They're not coming; they're here. So it's good for the voices from our part of the world to be heard. And as I say, it was great to see, of the 16 children, 2 were from the Pacific. Excellent.
Yeah, that's great. I think Micronesian nations are so progressive in the way that they do, involve themselves in conventions. So I'm not surprised at all that there was a Marshallese child in there. So, Boy, thank you so much for your time. I'm really grateful that you took the time to explain what happened, and I want to once again offer my congratulations to you for your role in this historical event. Thank you.
Thank you. And it was a team effort. A lot of people worked very hard on producing the final decision. It wasn't only committee members, but we had research assistants helping us. We had special rapporteurs who were intervening as independent advisors. We had a very hard-working petitions unit inside the secretariat of the committee. I mean, all these people, they worked very hard. What we see as the decision of the committee is, the final result of a lot of hard work by a lot of dedicated and committed people. So it was very much a team effort. I'm privileged to and humbled that I was sitting in the committee when this decision was made, and that I got the opportunity to put in my 2 cents worth and my little bit of input into it too. because I can look back on that, Samoa can look back on it and say, we had a part in that. And the business back on that and say, yes, we had a boy there who was, maybe they might be too kind, but, history will judge. We were there.
Yeah, we were. Well, thank you once again, Boy, and have a great rest of your weekend.
Thank you very much, Sherelle. It's a privilege, and good luck, and hope to have a coffee someday in Apia when you're back in town.
Nei male Pacific Isi, mo au tupe whamomoli Samoa, au tapu ni ai ofisa mo le whawa yasu. Whaonga nei lola na waunanga forward ta ua, o le direct transfer. A whai wa yesa membership card ma e whaonga ina le internet banking, o le matua i whaingo fia lava. Na le tipose mai lava lau se leni matua account, o na whaatino leo la foina o lau se leni mo a inga i Samoa. E ia inga i tahu na whaamalia mo nisi whaamatalanga i le nei au nanga fo. Wala au le telefoni o walu se lau o tasi o nono po le lua fitu ono fitu iwa fitu wha. Pe text mai fo ilo suafa i le valu tolu o.
Untitled Voucher is one of the most convenient ways that I'm finding now to do my shopping here at Mama Joe, and my sister just sent through the voucher on my cell phone, and I just go straight into Mama Joe to do my shopping.
Ole si tulanga tutusili ole tau. Ole la fo me ole pa tala olo. Ona fa ngale fa tau i olo e au nga mo ainga.
I think it's really convenient for families overseas if they don't know how to help their families here. Then this is the perfect way.
Mai ele sa so fu tau ele si sa.
Le fia foi sa we mo mawina le foi au nang fo we ala mai le talo for voucher. Ila wana fa tau ma me te mga oi. Ile voucher.
Dai mo le talo pa voucher. O mo ele apusu se wa fine. So se para loa fa ngo fie. A me se le tfelwa I mala telefoni. Tai mi uma. Ai lo la po merkes ona ino do tamao le ainga.
Fa te tu la vole tal for voucher mo le foi au nang fo fa tai. Ma lo la le tam fai.
Fa tai talo pa voucher. Teki talo pa voucher.
Tau tua ma le au nanga remote tau Samoa service station nei tona I matu. Ma tau te utuina lo ta vale, ma le tele o nisi o matu au nanga ese ese. Ai le ngata fo ia, ma tau te sea ke ina fo I lau ta vale. Siapa lah yang voice wow, mau lah ucapan. Apa itu yang baik pak ulusa? Awalnya telepon, matu siapa lah yang voice mau lah ucapan. Mulu no posilah dia, mua tapi lah ucapan lebih out. Mua tapi lah telepon ni time out tu inai lah ucapan. Malah bahaya mulu. Mana tua fo e matua I pasa ina lo tau maktapa ai no fuanga fa pe Hota Samoa ore mota mo Samoa ma do te fia e au na pe mo o Samoa fa taile fia mai we'll see you again. God bless.